Okay, tubers, how's it going? So let's work on the neon today. So what we got, if you guys are watching the videos, is it's a 98 neon. Has a bad tie rod in, so I'm going to replace this. And I'm going to replace both brake lines on this because they're both junk. This one especially, and I think the back one's going to have to be done also. To take the line off of this, there's one bolt here. This is just zip tied on because the bolt isn't there, and then it goes up and over and it goes into this this fitting right here, so you have to take this off, this bolt out, and that line will come off on both sides. With the tie rod, you've got one bolt here with the keyway or the castle nut, whatever, with a cotter pin in it, and then you have this piece here. Most of the time you have to take a ball joint separator and put in here to pop that apart. So what we're going to do is get this thing tore down, kind of show you as I'm going on, kind of show you what's going on as I go along. So let's get this thing apart. Well, I got new pads for this, but I don't think it's going to need them. Both pads are just like this on both sides. You may not be able to see the back side. I don't know, because I can't see through the camera dealy to see. I don't know if y'all see that or not. Okay, so I got new pads for it, but I'm not going to put them on it. What I'm going to do first is take this tie rod end off and replace it, and I'll show you my procedures how I do that. Because this does have a grease zerk on the top of it, makes it a whole lot easier, but there's another way that you can do this also, and I'll show you that as I go. Okay, so this is what comes in the with the new tie rod end. So you're going to get this nut, you got a cotter key, the grease zerk, and then you're going to have the castle nut on the bottom of here, okay, which will go in there once we get that apart. So that's your basis of what you're going to receive. Okay, so what we got is this has to come apart. So on this end, you can see this big nut on this end. So what you have to do is loosen this up first. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to loosen that up. Well, she's loose now, guys. So now we got to get the bottom one off. So we got to pull the cotter pin out of there and then loosen up that nut. Okay, so we got the castle nut loose and not removed. There's a reason why I'm not removing it, but you'll see that in a second. Okay, so this next part can be tricky if you guys don't have the correct tool, and I'm going to do this without the correct tool to show you the difference, because I can't find mine, but no big deal. There's two ways of getting these off of there. Okay, one involves using a hammer. The other one actually involves using a jack. Okay, and I've done both methods, so it doesn't matter which one you want to do. So I'm going to show you the hammer method, and I'm going to explain the jack method. So what you'll need to do this is like a floor jack or a bottle jack or whatever. The regular jacks for the cars might work, but they're not quite as stable as a floor jack, so that's what I've always used. So what you want to do on these is, so you got your tie rod here and it's loose, it's not completely off of there. Okay, so what you're going to do is there's a flat spot right here, okay, where I'm wiping it off. What you'll do is you can actually hit this, and a lot of times this ball joint will actually, or the ball joint, the tie rod will actually separate from inside in here. It has a taper, kind of like this hammer here, okay, but it's a lot, more narrow. So it goes down into that sleeve inside in there, and because it's expanded at the top and skinnier at the bottom, it actually goes in and wedges in there. So what you have to do is take and beat on it a little bit, and a lot of times they'll pop right off of there. So what you do is you can get a hold of this side, pull up on it, and hit it right here at the same time. If you can't get it off using this method, what you'll do is you put your jack underneath here, right here on the ground, and you jack it up to where the plate for the jack is right here. Okay, so you'll jack it up onto that, put some pressure on it, and then hit it right here with a hammer, and a lot of times that'll pop them loose too. Okay, after a little bit of persuasion, she's loose. So now you can take this off of there. This whole front end's been apart on this from when I lowered it once upon a time. It's been a few years ago, but yeah. Another thing, a lot of times when these are loose, when the ball joints are bad, it'll actually will spin when you try to take the nut off of it. See how this is spinning under here? So sometimes what you have to do is actually put pressure down on this to get this castle nut off the bottom of it. Okay, so you're thinking, well, so he's got this apart and he's got that loose. How does he know where to be able to realign this? So that's the next section here. So what you're going to want to do is the reason why I didn't thread this back very far is because that has a purpose. this has a grease fitting on it, which will have a purpose when I get done. So what you're going to do is you're going to need a tape measure. You want to measure from the back edge of this to the front edge of this. And what you can do is if you're not real good with fractions or whatnot, you want to put it right where you want it to be, so you'll know when you go to put it in here, it'll be right on. You can adjust this to make sure that you get this the right distance apart, so you know exactly where it will be when you put it back together. Okay, so here's my tape measure, guys. So I'll hook it on here, follow it back, and I'm at pretty much at 5 inches, and that's, I'm going to fine tune this a little bit. Another little partial turn in on that, and it'll make it right at 5 inches. Now there's a reason why you don't want to measure just between this gap, because these can actually be this can actually be shorter or longer. Each one of these is casted at a different time, and they could be shorter. See how the threads are in there? It could be a little shorter or a little longer. So if I set these right side by side and you look at the back of it, I don't know if you guys can see this. This one's actually on the left, it's just a fuzz shorter than the one on the right. So if you look there, she's just a tad bit shorter. So what you want to do is make sure you put your grease zerk in there and then measure to the middle of that zerk on this part, because this is where your steering comes from. If you get it too far in, it'll destroy the tire, and if you get it too far out, it'll destroy the tire. It can pull to the right or the left, because if you get this in the wrong configuration. So if you look at this, I've already removed this. Okay, and the end of this is all gray, and this is all gray. The reason it's that way is because these things are a honker to get off. So because it's up in here underneath the elements and everything else, so when I had worked on this previously, I made for sure that I was going to be able to take it apart again, because I knew eventually it had to come back apart like this. So I put anti-seize on pretty much anything that I could put my hands on that I had messed with, removing and putting back together, so that way I knew that she would stay there. So that's why she's gray. Okay, so back to this point. So what you want to do is put your tape measure up there, and what you'll do is you'll actually spin the tie rod in or out when you to get this back as close as you can to where it's at. So she needs about, I don't know, about a turn or so to get back to where she needs to be. So let me get that and we'll see what goes on. Okay, so turn that one more turn in. I'll show you what I got going on here. You hook this right on the back here. Make sure it's hooked on to the nut and not to any of the threads, because you can hook it on the thread back there and it'd be off a little bit. See, like that little bit will throw you off. So put this on here. Look at this. She's right at 5 inches, right in the middle, dead on, guys. That's where she needs to be. Okay, so relatively easy procedure when you plan ahead like that. So yeah, the basis of installation is the reverse of removal, of course. That's the reason why we measure it and make sure, double check everything to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. That's a big thing. So I'm going to get this stuff kind of buttoned up here. You guys know how to do the castle nuts, things like that. Those are pretty easy. When you reinstall this, make sure that everything is tight. Make sure both sides is tight. What I recommend doing also is putting this part on first before you tighten this down, because that way this will stay stationary for the most part. This just goes through there. Here's this taper that I was telling you guys about. See how it's tapered in? Like that hammer. So it's tapered in there to fit in this hole, which is a tapered hole also. So yeah. So what you do is, like I said, put this back in the hole, tighten it down, and then you'll tighten this nut up, which shouldn't throw your steering off any, because we got it right on. Okay, so reassemble, tighten up. Cotter pin is in there. What I've noticed with these, I've replaced a couple of them on these neons, and what I have to do is actually squish the head of the cotter pin up, because the hole is so far down on these ones. So I squish it up this way, bend this down so she stays, and then the other one gets bent around this way, and she's not going anywhere, she's not loose or anything. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the videos, guys. I'm going to do the brake hose here in just a minute, so stay tuned, guys. I'm going to put these up in 2 separate videos, because they are 2 separate procedures. So so stay tuned, guys, and I got to charge this thing too. So yeah, so stay tuned, guys. We'll get the rest of it back up here in a minute.